All right, good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Yancey County Board of Commissioners. I want to thank everyone who's in attendance for your interest in the local government here. We're going to start off with Pastor Donnie Hayams of North Wadesboro Baptist Church.
Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Great God, we are thankful, Father, for all your many blessings, and it's always a blessing and a privilege just to come to you in our time of prayer and lift up our praise and our petitions to you. And Lord, this evening as I come and pray for these folks here at the County Commissioners meeting. Lord, you know all the responsibilities that they have, everything that they have to deal with, everything that they have to face for the betterment of this county. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made. So Lord, I do pray for each commissioner, Lord, that you would give them discernment and the wisdom that can only come from above and help them to do the best for this county. And Lord, for everybody that's in it, for all the citizens of this county. Lord, for our law enforcement and the job that they have to do. Lord, it's a dangerous job. Lord, we pray that you put a hedge of protection around them. For our schools and our students and our faculty, Lord, there's a lot goes on there. And all of these things, Lord, factor in with what goes on in this room. So, Lord, I pray your blessings here. I pray pray that you'd give us economic prosperity here in Yancey County, Lord, as you see fit. But God, I pray most of all that whatever we do in word or deed, may it be done for your glory. And Lord, whatever happens here tonight, may it be done decent and in order, as only you would have it. And we ask these things in Christ's name with thanksgiving. Thank you for hearing our prayers. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Thank you, Pastor Hayams, for that. All right, we're going to move on to our approval of the agenda. And I do have one item that I would like to add under the appointments. It would be item 8B, which would be a planning board member appointment. So with that addition, are there any other additions to the agenda?
Make a motion that we approve the agenda with the stated addition.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Gatewood, second by Commissioner Ellerby. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, so now it's going to be just a little bit different. We have 3 public hearings that we're going to conduct tonight in reference to some zoning changes. And so I'm going to entertain a motion to enter into the first public hearing at this time.
Make a motion we move into public hearing.
Have a motion by Commissioner Ellerby, second by Commissioner Little Reed to enter our public hearing for the zoning map amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Addison, if you will.
Okay, so first one we'll go through, we have 3 items on the agenda tonight for public hearings for the Board of Commissioners to consider. The first one is a straight rezoning request by John Stefanik, identified as ZMA 25-0001. Okay, so the summary of this request, and for those in the audience, the parcels in question are here in the map presented on the easel, but they'll also be in the PowerPoint. But it's 3 separate parcels. They are currently zoned as light industrial, and in total the 3 parcels are a little over 30 acres. The request is to zone them from light industrial to rural agricultural 3 or RA3. So with this being a straight rezoning request, that means there's no conditions imposed. So they're allowed, if if they are rezoned, they're allowed to pursue any permitted use within an RA3 district. So this is the 3 parcels in question, but it's pretty straightforward on those 3. So here's some images of what the site looks like. Actually, tell you what, let's go back one slide. If you look, the 3 parcels, the southern parcels and parcels to the east have been zoned as light industrial. Parcels to the north are zoned as RA5. So I apologize for not pointing that out. So here's just some site conditions as they exist currently. As you can see, most of it's rural and agricultural in nature. The only commercial or industrial aspect in the vicinity would be steel mechanical service. They have a facility out there. But outside of that, most of it is rural and agricultural in nature. And this is how the site existed in February of 2023 when the aerial imagery was shot. Other thing to note regarding this property is there are some wetlands located on the back portions of 2 of the lots associated with a stream, Lacey Branch, and they are designated as a 100-year flood zone or a 1% chance of flooding. So one thing we have to consider when you go through a rezoning effort is, does it align with the comprehensive land use plan? Anson County adopted its 2040 land use plan back in April of 2021, and in that plan it identified that region of the county as working, farm, and rural living land uses. Excuse me. So in its current designation as light industrial, that's not compatible with the land use plan. But rezoning it RA3 does make it compatible with the land use plan, and it would encourage things such as low density single family homes and preserving agricultural and rural character of the region, which are what those land uses are for. So based on the existing conditions of the area, rezoning it from light industrial to RA3 wouldn't be out of character for the existing uses. However, in the rezoning, the zoning efforts the county just went through where we adopted countywide zoning, this area was identified for light industrial use. So rezoning to an RA3 could impact any sort of future industrial growth. However, if we do rezone it at your pleasure, it may provide a smoother transition from those light industrial regions to the RA5. So there was a planning board hearing concerning the rezoning several weeks back. The planning board recommended this rezoning for approval and found it in conformance with the land use plan, and the vote was unanimous. It was a 6-0 vote. They were in favor of it with no issues. And then in terms of my analysis from the planning and zoning department, I saw no issues with this rezoning as it affords a more immediate growth and development of the property related to single family homes, whereas its current zoning of light industrial is predicated on industrial and commercial growth, which may or may not come. So rezoning it to RA3 would provide more immediate avenues for growth and fits the existing character of the region. So that's the quick presentation. Now, as a part of statutes, we do have to open it up for public comment at the board's pleasure, and then my recommendation would be to go from there into board comments and questions. If you would like, I can turn the light on for this board.
Please, yes. All right, at this time, are there any commissioner comments on this zoning request?
Public Public.
But, I mean, the public's open too. I was just opening up to commissioners first if there's any questions, and then we can address the public. So, okay, so now we'll open the floor to the public.
I have a question for him.
Okay.
What is it, why was it zoned light industrial? Do you know why?
That would go back to the two contract firms we had do the zoning effort over the course of a year or two. That was adopted back in April of 2024. So that predates my time in this position. So as to what their logic was, I can't speak. My best estimate is they saw maybe potential growth in that region due to the proximity of Highway 74 and the rail lines, and potentially Union County. But I didn't do it, but that's my best guess.
And what's the difference between a RA3 and a RA5?
The biggest difference will be the acreage requirement. So RA3 is required to have 3 acres, whereas RA5 is 5 acres. There may be a few items that are permitted in one versus the other. Nothing's jumping to mind, but that is the biggest difference, is the acreage requirement.
And one last question would be, so now if this is approved for RA3, it could possibly impact the potential opportunity for industry in that particular area. Is that correct? So I guess, I mean, because this would be like residential, and so then if just peradventure some kind of company wanted to come to that part of the county, then that zoning would affect that particular business.
Correct. Just as a complete hypothetical, say some new big industrial facility wanted to come in. If it's light industrial, they would most likely be able to do it. If it's RA3, they most likely wouldn't be able to. And again, it depends on how the business is classified, but generally that is correct.
So if we do RA3, light industrial couldn't.
Yeah, you can only have one zoning at a time.
Right, okay.
And there's certain uses spelled out in the zoning plan, what's allowed in RA3.
Right.
But correct me if I'm wrong, obviously this is not a permanent, rezoning. I mean, the hypothetical you said, if someone was to purchase this person's property and it's RA3, they can always request another rezoning to go back to light industrial.
That is correct, and our ordinance doesn't have a timeline. It doesn't say if you rezone today that you can't rezone tomorrow. Some counties implement that. We don't have that in our ordinance.
Yeah.
So if it's rezoned to RA3 tonight, and then 5 years later they want to build, some new facility there, they could always petition to have it rezoned.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other, Mr. Forbes?
I'd like to ask a couple questions.
Sure.
I want to make sure that just for the hearing of do you find that there will be any negative impacts to the area?
No.
Okay. And does it align with the current land use plan as it is today?
Yes.
Okay. And then does it preserve the character of the land?
Yes.
And the planning board made findings to say that that they were going to back this. Is that correct?
Yes.
I just want to make sure we have
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Find any inhibiting of potential growth for the future by changing this?
Long range, you could always make the argument that you would prevent industrial commercial uses, but you're banking on the fact that would come.
Only on that land, though. The surrounding land
Correct.
is still zoned the way it was, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Just want to make sure. Thank you.
Is that the potential use for it? Is it to maybe potentially build in that area, like single homes?
That was the intent when they
Right.
did the initial countywide zoning, was to have it light industrial. But the petition.
No, I'm saying like now with the ones that I guess the owners
What's his intent?
or their intent is.
So their intent,
Is
but
it
they're
for
not
housing?
bound by it because there's no conditions, is to develop single family homes. And he's here tonight if you would like to speak on it. But because it's a straight rezoning, there are no conditions imposed, so they're able to pursue anything that's permitted within an RA3, assuming they follow those standards and regulations.
Okay. Any other questions from the public? Comments?
You know how many homes he's planning to put in that RA3 if it's approved?
The last I spoke to him was one on each parcel, which is what we're limited by, but that was my last understanding.
He's here, so since no
If
public,
you would like to, I mean,
let him
if
come and
required.
let him share.
If you will, just speak into the mic at the podium, please.
So we bought the land from my family. It was 2 tracts, had it subdivided to 4 because we found 4 perk sites. So we've already paid the money and got the perk sites already done. So there's 3 tracts there. One of them we actually built on already, which is next to it. It horseshoes around a bunch of houses.
Yeah.
So all we were looking to do was put 1 house on each tract, which is what we're allowed to do, because there's only a perk site on each lot. So that was essentially why I bought it. But basically we bought it for my kids, myself, and for our family.
Okay. I can attest to it. It's literally right around the corner from my property, so it fits well with what's already existing in that area, the existing homes that are already built there. So,
Yeah, thank you.
all right. Any other comments or concerns from the public?
I make a motion, we come out of public hearing.
Second.
All right. So we have a motion by Commissioner Ellaby, second by Commissioner Mims to exit the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we pass it and rezone it from light industrial to RA3.
Second.
All right. So we have a motion by Commissioner Ellaby, a second by Commissioner Gatewood to approve the rezoning request from light industrial to RA3. Are there any other discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, so that one passes. So this time I will entertain a motion to re-enter a public hearing for the repealing of a Nancy County solar energy ordinance.
So move.
Have a motion by Commissioner Ellaby, second by Commissioner Little Reed to enter a public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Addison.
Okay, so this one is for the repealing of the Anson County Solar Energy Ordinance, identified in our department as ORD 25-0001. So the way it is right now, both the solar energy ordinance and the zoning and subdivision ordinance both regulate solar energy projects with essentially the exact same regulatory language in both documents. It was essentially a copy paste from one ordinance into the zoning and subdivision ordinance. So by repealing it, we can streamline the process and set up so that we have one sole ordinance governing the development of these sorts of projects. So it'll be a lot smoother implementation process, and more so on the flip side, it makes amendments a lot easier, because we would have to amend both ordinances at the same time. So having just one document government makes amendments an easier process, a little more streamlined. So the solar energy ordinance was adopted back in 2016, and it primarily focused on utility scale projects. It didn't really discuss anything for residential use, like solar panels on the roof or anything of that nature. It was just utility scale. And as I'd kind of alluded to earlier, it was essentially a copy-paste of the solar energy ordinance language into our zoning ordinance. While this is okay at first glance, what it ultimately did was created regulatory issues because the language wasn't updated to coincide with the language in our zoning ordinance. So there was a lot of regulatory issues, and in fact it was to the point you couldn't even consider solar projects because of the mismatch of language and ordinance guidelines. So what I proposed was to repeal it and then update all the solar energy language within the zoning and subdivision ordinance, which will be our next public hearing where we talk about text amendments to the zoning ordinance. So my recommendation to the planning board was, not my recommendation, but my findings to the planning board was to approve the repealing of the solar energy ordinance with the contingency that amendments will be made to the zoning ordinance so that we can bring it in line. Didn't want to repeal it and then have something happen to that amendment and then create a bigger mess. So we just, cleanest way was to do a recommendation of approval with contingencies. There was minimal discussion by the planning board on that proposal, and it passed unanimously 3 weeks back. And then my recommendation is the same as well, to repeal it and to allow the zoning ordinance to be the sole ordinance that governs solar energy projects. Okay.
All right. So at this time,
Yep,
we'll
sorry,
open the
public.
floor for any public comment on the solar ordinance. All right, hearing none. Any commissioners' concerns? Yes, sir, Mr. Wood.
Just a question, has the zoning ordinance been updated to reflect what was in the solar energy ordinance?
That's the next public hearing we're going into to discuss text amendments wherein updates to the solar energy language will be revised.
So I guess where I'm going with it then, the language is there, it's just the public hearing has to approve it and then it'll be done. Is that correct?
Yes, assuming the commissioners approve it.
Right, well, yeah, okay, thank you.
Make a motion, we come out of public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Gatewood, second by Commissioner Ellerby to exit the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, what's the board's pleasure on the solar ordinance?
I make a motion that we approve the recommendation.
Second.
All right, have a motion by Commissioner Ellerby, second by Commissioner Gatewood to repeal the solar energy ordinance. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, all right, moving on to our third public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to enter into a public hearing to discuss some zoning and subdivision ordinance text amendments.
So move.
Motion by Commissioner Ellerby, second by Commissioner Little Reed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is zoning and subdivision ordinance text amendments TA 25-0001. So this packet, bundle of amendments, most of them are minute in nature, is to enhance some clarity and improve some regulatory consistency, minor updates. There are a few bigger ticket items that I'm going to specifically point out, and we'll go through those in a little more detail. As it is in total, there's 50 plus amendments proposed. Like I said, most of them are minute in nature, but the bigger ones will definitely go over more. So, the biggest one is the update to solar energy systems. So now that we've repealed the solar energy ordinance, we need to go back and amend the solar energy language within the zoning ordinance. So my recommendation is to do a tiered system. So it's level 1, 2, and 3, and as the levels increase, so does their use type and regulatory restrictions. So level 1 is accessory uses. This would be solar panels on your house, whether it be shingles, hanging curtains, or the panels, or panels in the side yard. But they're accessory uses, they're not utility scale, they're nothing of that nature. Then move into level 2, those would be principal uses. Now level 2 and 3 are essentially the same, except for this slide here points out the differences. Level 2s would be something akin to let's say a commercial enterprise wanted to put up a 1 acre set of panels to help offset their energy costs. That would be something equivalent to a level 2. Whereas level 3 would be if a developer came in and wanted to build 30 acres of solar panels. It's more of a utility scale. So that's really the biggest difference, is the scale. The other one would be level 2 is approved administratively by the zoning administrator, whereas level 3s would have to go through the planning board, get a planning board recommendation, and then come to the Board of Commissioners for final approval or denial pursuant to a Class A special use permit. That's the only differences between level 2 and 3. Whoa.
Whoop.
I don't know what happened there. Can you reset that?
I can't read that fast.
There we go. Close the hearing now. Okay. So like I said, these are the only differences between level 2 and 3. Other than that, everything else will be the same. So they have to do a permit fee, which is currently set at $2,500. They have setbacks that they need to adhere to, screening requirements. There's fencing requirements, certain safety standards such as reducing glare, don't cause traffic issues, don't mess with the airport, meet building codes, that sort of thing. They have to adhere to the airport height overlay district. They have to keep the facility in good maintenance and working condition. They need to make sure they have erosion control measures installed, which is essentially grass and vegetation. They need to limit the type of nuisance, so those are usually outdoor lights and then the inverters that solar farms use. Just need to be certain setbacks adhered to. There's a change in ownership restriction, which says if you change ownership or operators, notify the county. Solar glare hazard analysis is a tool to make sure it does not impact airport or aircraft operations, and it's done through FFA, so it's a pretty good process. Then the big one that most counties really like to see is a decommissioning and reclamation plan. This would be required for both level 2s and level 3s. And then they have to secure funds to make sure they can proceed with their decommissioning and reclamation plans should they need to. Let's see. Again, we include language that they have to have a bond not less than 15% of the assessed value to ensure that 15% of the assessed value and the total cost of the energy system to make sure that they can achieve decommissioning and reclamation should they need to. And then we also have a section for liability, the allowing of certain livestock to operate in the solar farms, and that we've added a new section to clearly dictate what is required when they submit for one of these types of permits. I will say the bulk of that information I just breezed through is the same information that was in the solar energy ordinance. So it's what the county's been operating with for the past 9 years. There's a few new things or nuanced tweaks, but nothing substantial. Most of it was just amended to be in conformance with our zoning ordinance. The next big ticket item is the travel trailer recreational vehicle temporary use pursuant to the development of land. With our new ordinance and prior, you're not allowed to live on site in a camper or RV or anything of that nature. But given the conditions of Anson County, it has become obvious as contractors reach out to me, there is a need for developers, construction crews and that sort of thing to have somewhere to stay while they work on these projects. And so one thing that I thought would be a good idea was to allow these types of entities to set up campers, RVs, and structures of that sort to live in while they're working on the project. We've had several contractors reach out to me the past several months, and I've had to deny them because the ordinance doesn't allow that sort of thing. So using the tiered system, again, I set it up so that I could approve up to 2 campers during construction processes. The planning board, via Class B special use permit, could approve 3 to 5, and anything over 5 would be prohibited. So a Class B special use permit, they'd have to submit an application, $225 fee, and then do a planning board public hearing, similar to what we're doing tonight. And the use, that type of use would be temporary, and it would be tied to any sort of building permit or anything of that nature, and it would expire once the building permit expires, or they're granted CO or anything of that nature. So it's not permanent, it's temporary in nature.
And I would question you, so they do have to have an active building permit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There were some updates to the table of permitted uses. One thing that was updated was to remove landfills, regardless of their size, from RA5, RA3, RA2, and RA1. So they would no longer be allowed in those zoning districts and would only be permitted in light industrial and heavy industrial districts. Also in the table of permitted uses, there had not been established uses for R10 districts, so those were established. Another big ticket item was reducing the frontage requirement, which is the amount of property along the road right-of-way that you're required to have when you divide parcels, and reducing it from 80 feet to 50 feet, which is still significantly more than surrounding counties, but it is a reduction. It makes subdivisions a little easier, but it still allows the bulk of the county to have that more rural character. Okay, one of the last big ticket items is access easements. So right now, in the state of North Carolina, you're not allowed to create parcels that are landlocked. And so if you don't have access to the road, you have to have an easement. So the proposal here is to develop access easement language that is perpetual in nature, so it can't be an easement in gross, which is private easements for one person for whatever listed reasons are recorded. My recommendation is to have these access easements recorded with the Register of Deeds and have them platted to be 20, or they don't have to be platted, but recorded as 20 feet wide and subject to a binding maintenance agreement that all owners, current and future, would have to adhere to and sign. This is, I've looked around, it's pretty common language within the region. I don't recall seeing any counties adjacent to us or in the region that didn't have such a language. It provides protection for current and future owners. However, the planning board during their last meeting when this was presented to them voted not to recommend that section of amendments to the Board of Commissioners yourselves. They were concerned that requiring a binding maintenance agreement would cause issues for people who didn't really know what they were doing. They would sign some agreement and be taken advantage of to gravel a driveway or something of the sort. That was their big concern, was the cost, and maybe they wouldn't realize just what they were signing and what they were doing. There was a little concern that maybe Anson County attorneys wouldn't know how to draft a binding maintenance agreement, but I reassured the planning board it's kind of boilerplate in nature. It's not a very technical document. I didn't think there would be any concern in legal counsel being able to develop that. It's pretty boilerplate. But that was their recommendation, to not recommend the adoption of that language regarding binding maintenance agreements to the Board of Commissioners.
And is that your recommendation, Mr. Addison?
My recommendation is to to approve it with the binding maintenance agreement.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. One thing I did include in there was a revision to the driveway definition. I have asked, since this became public, I've had more conversations with staff involved with that ordinance, which is what we use to assign 911 addresses. And we use it on the GIS side. My initial thought was to tie our zoning ordinance of definition to the definition we use to assign 911 addresses. So that's how I proceeded. Well, after I initially went out with this document, and I've had more and more conversations with that staff, it kind of became clear that that is an ordinance we may want to revise or amend in the future, just because of some issues we have in implementing it. So knowing that that's something that could be happening at some point in the future, I would like to request that we do not adopt revising the driveway definition to match the definition provided in the addressing ordinance. So we had the planning board meeting several weeks back. It's pretty much the same thing we've done tonight. As I said, all in all, the planning board really didn't have any issues with it. They voted to recommend approval with the exception they did not vote to recommend the adoption of the binding maintenance agreement, and upon my request they had recommended that you do not adopt the revised driveway definition. So my recommendation is to adopt it all as proposed, excluding the driveway definition. In regards to the binding maintenance agreement, my thinking, and it seems to be the thinking that many other planning and zoning departments within our region have, is that requiring such a document would provide a clear description of each person's responsibilities and maintenance requirements. And I know their concern was that maybe someone unknowledgeable would be taken advantage of, and I'm not going to say that can happen, but if that did happen, at least they have a legal document to refer back to, which would still be cheaper than the cost of going to court to argue over $500 worth of gravel. That was kind of my logic. It's more of a protection measure, but it's at your pleasure.
We're not putting rules on this, we're just saying that the two parties have to agree, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. Yeah, we're not requiring them to pave it or gravel it that's so many inches or anything. That all we're asking is them to adopt a maintenance agreement so that it's maintained and there's a clear framework between the owner, the subservient and dominant tenant.
This is merely forcing them to think about it.
Yes, sir. Which I would hope they're doing as they procure property, but
Sure.
it's probably something that is pretty commonly overlooked.
But if they don't agree, that means it's not gonna happen.
If we adopted it and they couldn't come to an agreement over a binding maintenance agreement, then technically no, it wouldn't be able to happen. I would hope that the two parties, the dominant and subservient tenant, would be able to come to an agreement on maintenance agreements. I mean, when I envision this, and I think this is how other planners think about it, we're literally just talking about gravel on the road. And the maintenance agreement could say, you know, we're each going to chip in $100 every year to re-gravel the road, or $100 every 10 years. I mean, it doesn't have to be some draconian thing to DOT standards. This is just an agreement to protect all of those involved.
And this is prevention from us having to maintain it. Is that what it is?
No, it has nothing to do. It
Who
wouldn't
would
be a
maintain
county
it if
road.
if they don't?
If let's say you had a parcel that touched the road and I own land back behind you, but I didn't have access to the road because my parcel's landlocked, and you gave me an easement, and one day you said, Nick, you owe me $500 for all this gravel I put down. Well, if we didn't have a binding maintenance agreement, we could disagree, you know, we could take it to court or whatever, whereas if we had that binding maintenance agreement, it would lay it out. what the requirements for each party are.
Thank you.
One thing I need to point out is in North Carolina, counties do not build or maintain roads or streets. It's
Correct.
a function of either the state or cities and towns. But I have had phone calls from folks who complain about the issue that Nick's talking about because there was no agreement. The driveway or entryway is not maintained, and they've got big holes, and since they've lived in other states that do require counties to do it, they anticipate that Anson County would do it.
Okay.
If there was no binding maintenance agreement, I could have an easement on Commissioner Mims' land going through it. Commissioner Mims could have a big 4-wheel drive pickup truck and rut it all. I mean, he could take equipment and rut that road up to where me with a 4-door sedan car could no longer get through that easement. Although I had a qualified easement through his land, I can no longer access that land because Commissioner Mims has drove equipment through it and tore it up. That's where I think a binding maintenance agreement is a very positive thing, especially for the person that is trying to access their land. And on the flip side of that, the person trying to get to the land could take equipment or whatever through that easement and tear it up as well. I think it's a fail-safe for both parties. I would definitely, I've seen easements of similar situations with that in the past, to where it's been hit. I've seen it on both parties. Pulling equipment through it, they want it fixed. One party's willing to do it, the other party's like, I don't want to put any money into it. It could completely affect one person, the other person can have all the materials to get through it.
Yeah, and we're not dictating what has to be in the binding maintenance agreement. We're just asking them to adopt one. So we're not saying it has to meet XYZ criteria. It doesn't have to be gravel to 6 inches. It doesn't, we're not stipulating what has to be in it, anything. We're just asking that the two parties come together and adopt one.
It'll be on the table.
Yeah.
And they could agree to do nothing with it.
Right.
Yeah.
That could be their agreement to.
And all that will be handled at the, I guess, at the closing if someone's.
Yeah, that would be between them and their legal
Yeah.
counsel. We wouldn't have any hand in that.
No.
Other
Okay.
than making sure it had been adopted.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have anything else to add?
Not
or-
unless there's public comment.
All right, we'll open the floor to the public. Yes, sir.
Could you clarify the RV and the amount of time you can live in an RV while you're building again? Is that the way I understood it? Was
Years the maximum.
Is that correct?
Are you talking about what currently exists or what's being proposed? So it's initially would be 6 months, and then you could do 3-month extensions. If you've shown
Those 3 months extensions.
your total permit life couldn't be over a year.
Can you reapply for another permit at the end of the year?
Yes, I don't think we have, which I can double check. I don't think we have language that would prevent that, but you would have to demonstrate that you've made progress. If you got a permit and kept getting extensions, and at the 11th month you just abandoned the project, I can't speak for the planning board, but they probably wouldn't permit you a new one. If you had abandoned the project or showed no progress.
You didn't mention abandoning the project, so assuming we're not abandoning the project,
Right.
I can continue to build and live in an RV more than 1 year.
If after the 1 year, if you came back and reapplied and the planning board granted it.
I'm concerned about that limitation because people are moving to this county. More people are leaving than are coming, but people are coming to this county. They are living in RVs, they are building houses in their RV. Many of them have full-time jobs, and I didn't have a full-time job. I was retired, and it still took me 2 years to build my house.
Well, it wouldn't be so in your case, were you demonstrating progress in developing the house?
I can say yes.
So then in that case, the planning board most likely would approve for, to renew the permit past the 1 year mark.
Would he have to pay more money?
Yes, $225, as it currently exists.
My recommendation is to bump that up to 3 years.
That would be up to the pleasure of the board, based on what was presented.
I've got another question about the phase 1 solar panels. In the initial zoning document, there was a limitation on how much energy can be put back on the grid. In the second one, I didn't find that any longer. Is that being put back in, or is that still gone?
Still, it's not in this current amendment.
So now, the trailer or RV situation, that is for more or less like contractors though, right? Is that, or would that ordinance, so like, I guess in an instance of individuals building their own home, or?
It could be an individual contractor.
Right, I know, in the state of North Carolina, that's what I'm saying. So, I think the idea is more around, construction companies coming in and building. It was the thought process in this recommendation, correct?
Yes, but if me as Joe Blow wanted to live in an RV while I build my house, I could do that. But my greater intent was, as you said, is thinking more about professional crews.
Right.
But this would also work for John Q. Public.
Right.
As it is right now, the only way you can legally live in a camper, or RV, or anything of that nature in Anson County is if your house was destroyed and you're actively rebuilding.
Will that stay the same with the adoption of this? In other words, if your house is destroyed, it'll follow the same guidelines here. You've got to be making progress.
Well, that's a separate section of the ordinance. That's not being changed, but that one has similar language. You have to be demonstrating forward progress.
Is there any other comments from the floor?
I'd like to make a motion we come out of public hearing.
Second.
All right, have a motion to exit public hearing by Commissioner Ellerby, second by Commissioner Little Reed and Commissioner Gatewood. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so what is the board's pleasure on the proposed text amendment changes?
I'd like to make a motion we accept his recommendation with the added change of 2 years for a permit instead of 1 with the 12 months. So I think 3 would be kind of overdoing it. 2 would give enough time with that 1 fee. So 24 months instead of, a maximum of 24 months.
So would you propose having to redo the 3-month extensions up to
I would say
2 years?
Maybe you pay and you get a year and a half or whatever. I don't know how we would do that, but a maximum of 2 years instead of 1.
Yeah.
So however he would do the math.
Mr. Addison, and we should have clarified, the extensions, you don't have to pay for the extensions, is that correct?
That is correct.
You pay a one-time fee, and then you can apply for 2 extensions, 3 months apiece. So would it satisfy if we stuck with the 1 year, you can do 3-month extensions up to 2 years?
Yes. That would be, yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other changes, or I guess as far as, in other words, I guess we adopt this as one motion, correct? If we're going to adopt it, we would,
yes,
all
just
of the changes.
Any, conditions you're going to add, so that revision, and then if you are going to not adopt the driveway revision, stipulate that.
Okay.
And then anything else you're going to add or amend from what was presented.
Okay. One other point of clarity. In the permitted uses, since we are defining the planning board and the board of adjustment as one board, the permitted uses, will that be changed to reflect one planning board would make those recommendations? So as now you have an SA or SB, I believe it is, that can approve the changes?
The changes, what, when you say changes?
Or can approve the request. In other words, when someone comes in and it's a special use or
I see.
in the designated uses, SA has to approve it.
Yes.
Some of them SB can approve it.
We can leave it the same because even though it's the planning board, they're carrying out the duties of a board of adjustment.
Okay. So
We can leave it there, but if you would like to amend that, just to make it match better.
I just thought it would clean it up. That way.
If you would like to do that, we can do that. That's not a significant amendment to the ordinance,
Yeah.
so we don't have to go through this whole road and pony show again if you would like.
Okay. I think it would be cleaner that way when you're looking at permitted uses. You see the planning board can approve it or it's got to come back to this board for approval.
And that's just for the table of permitted uses, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. I do want to point out on the landfill issue, that was a very big issue when we adopted the zoning ordinance, and we made a promise that we would address it. So I just want to clarify that we are addressing it tonight. The other part I want to mention is, so it does state in here that landfills are permitted in LI or HI districts within the county. I do want to remind you that our current franchise agreement states there will be no other commercial landfill in Hanson County as long as we have a contract with the one with Waste Connections now. So even though they're allowed, the contract with them is prohibiting it from having another one here. So I just want to clarify that for the citizens. All right.
And so what we're approving now includes the binding maintenance agreements. That's included.
If that's the board's pleasure.
Right. That's my motion.
Okay.
Just to take his recommendation.
So your motion is to approve Mr. Addison's recommendation.
And added
with
the
the added
change
2
that
year.
you, yes, sir.
Okay.
I can restate that motion once we're done. But
Okay. So, are there any other changes or amendments that we see?
Anybody have any thoughts on the bonding agreement?
Yeah, he's recommending that we.
I just didn't know if anybody else had any.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I see it, but I mean, I understand the argument against it. I can understand it, but I agree with Mr. Addison. If I have an easement and me and the person that's using my easement are not getting along, and I have to resort to an attorney, it's going to be cheaper to put this in place up front than it is on the back end. So, okay.
So I guess to restate my motion is that we accept the recommendation of Mr. Addison with the added change of the
2 year extensions.
2 year extension and the recommendation made as it pertains to the update to the ordinance.
The permitted uses.
For permitted uses. And that's my motion.
Okay. So we have a motion by Commissioner Ellaby, second by Commissioner Gatewood to approve the changes to the zoning ordinance with the recommended changes of a 2 year extension on the travel trailer, changing the permitted uses table to reflect just one planning board, and also follow Mr. Addison's recommendations for a binding agreement, maintenance agreement for the easements. Any other discussion on that? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, so does that conclude your?
That is it for me.
All right, so.
You guys are all done with me. I'm gonna get this turned off.
All right, so at this time I'll entertain a motion to exit the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Little Reed, second by Commissioner Mims. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right. I know that was a lot, but I just want to express that that's how the public hearings for the zoning ordinance will work in the future as well. So when we implemented countywide zoning, we knew it was not going to be a permanent fix. We knew it was going to have changes, and this is how we make those changes transparently with the public involved. So, all right. So we'll get back to the agenda. One thing I do want to do before we go any further, I want to read the ethics statement. In accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, it is the duty of every board member to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest or appearances of conflict with respect to any matter coming before the board? If so, please identify the conflict and refrain from any undue participation in the particular matter involved. So are there any conflicts with the agenda tonight?
No, sir.
All right, hearing none, we will move to our consent agenda. You have in your packet in our consent agenda is the property tax refunds, and then there's also the South Piedmont College budget. We do have Ms. Brock here if there's any questions on that.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Commissioner Gatewood, second by Commissioner Mims to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion on that? I have one question, Ms. Brock, on the budget. It's very minute, but I'm just curious for my own use. Under the revenue detail, it says miscellaneous county revenue. Can you explain what that is or where it would come from?
Yes, thank you. Let me pull that out. If you look above that, the Anson County appropriation of $897,235 does not include the sales tax allocation that's also allocated to us. And so that miscellaneous county revenue is the Anson County sales tax money plus any interest in our interest-bearing checking accounts.
Okay, all right. So that is for the board. That's the Article 44 sales tax that's divided to them. Okay, thank you for that. Any other discussions on the South Piedmont or the consent agenda and all? All right, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, moving on. We don't have any appearances tonight, so we will get to the public addresses. We have a couple signed up. So there shall be a time set aside at each regular meeting of the board for public comment. Each citizen who wishes to speak during this time must sign up on a sign-up sheet prior to the start of the meeting. Each citizen will be allowed 3 minutes for their presentation. All citizens are expected to follow proper decorum and shall not use profanity nor defamatory speech. The public is expected to remain seated except when leaving the room. Only presenters listed on the agenda or recognized by the chairman will be called to the podium to address the board. Commissioners are expected not to comment on matters brought to the board during this time, but to delay action or comment until staff has had an opportunity to research the subject matter and to report necessary and relevant information to all members of the board. At this time, I'm going to call Rocky Carpenter.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I've come more for informational purposes tonight. We're living in Peachland. It's kind of hard to get all the information you need up that far west. So tonight I just hearing about a lot of utility contracts and what have you coming our way, and just have a question for the commissioners tonight. If you can answer that, is the casino coming to Anson County?
I will answer that. As of this time, there is no discussion, there are no plans, it is not allowed in the state of North Carolina for a private entity to operate a casino.
Okay. All right. And the reason I needed to know that was because I needed to know if I needed to get the sign where Scott has his signs on the highway there. There was one open, and I was going to rent it for our church so that we could start working and getting trained on gambling addictions, in addition to the already addictions that we're dealing with drugs and alcohol and the whole 9 yards. So I just want one more time, and this is because I love you guys and I just want to see you be successful. I want you to remember, I walked in a building tonight, and at the very top, I don't know that I've ever noticed that, but it says, "In God We Trust." And in here, in the very beginning, in the middle of the building, and where you're making your decisions, it says, "In God We Trust." You're under a tremendous amount of pressure. I understand that. And I want you to remember that there's one thing in the book of Proverbs, and it comes out of the book of Proverbs 13:11. And it says, whosoever rewardeth evil for good, evil shall not depart from his or her house. Please remember that tonight. He goes on to say one more time, and I'm done. Proverbs 17:15. He that justifieth the wicked, and he that condemneth the just, even they both are an abomination to the Lord. Please remember what God is trying to tell you as you make decisions with this board. And I pray, I'm praying for a spiritual awakening right now for Anson County. And not one that would just, I'm praying that it would, right now, that it would just go, it could start at Harmony, it could go to up to Union County and Marshville, Wingate College, come back through Peachland and Polkton, Southern Fabricators, could go to Wadesboro to Anson High School. It can go right now. We're working a work in Oak Hill Apartments now, and we're wanting to see God's work there. It could go on to Ansonville and Morven and to Lysville, even to Lysville Baptist Church, Little Victory Baptist Church, and on into Rockingham, to the rest of the state, to the rest of the states in our country, and to the rest of the countries in the world. Only God can do what needs to be done there, but please make decisions that would facilitate that, so that our county would be a county that people would want to move to, and that people are still, they're coming into the county, they're coming, and that's a great thing. But I thank you for what you're doing, and God bless you in that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Carpenter. So, all right, next we have Mr. Charles McGinnis. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Thanks for allowing me to come up and speak. The reason I'm here is I just want to remind you guys, I try to do this about every year, that you can shut that landfill down tomorrow. All you have to do is contact Jason Watson, send him a letter, he will pull all the permits. There's nothing that landfill can do to stop it. So, just to remind you. And just, the reason I'm reminding you is because the landfill's been totally out of control for the last 2 weeks. Absolutely out of control. I want to read you a couple of comments. This one is January 3rd. On December 12th, it smelled so bad in Anson County that I almost took my breath away. When I took out my dog, I could smell inside my house the next morning. It is horrible at times. I didn't correct the grammar or spelling on these. Another one is, I could smell it passing Freedom Baptist Church on Highway 218 this morning. And this was January the 1st, around 6:45 a.m. That is 7.64 miles straight line distance from one direction as the crow flies. Assuming it is possible that toxic gases could travel that far in any direction, here is roughly drawn, he drew a map of it, and the map shows 105,000 acres or 164 square miles that landfill can cover. And don't be fooled by the smell. If you smell it, you are also ingesting over 150 different toxic cancerous compounds and particles. On January 1st, 4:53 p.m., I too smelled the landfill. I had grandchildren visiting at the time. My thought was, what are they being exposed to that is potentially dangerous to their health? When are we going to get anyone to care what we are experiencing? So I've, in my frustration, I sent a letter to the governor. You can see at the top right, dated at December 31st. And so I wanted you, the commissioners, to understand, to know what I sent, and I want to read it to you. It says, I'm writing you today with both concern and urgency regarding the ongoing environmental and public health disaster caused by the landfill at Anson County. The nauseating stench from the landfill was very pungent at my house this morning. That's where I live, my house. I'm not reading somebody else's. It's not an inconvenience you dismiss and laugh off. It's a potent mix of 150 toxic cancer-causing substances that is regularly poisoning my family and my animals, sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides, to name a few. Am I out?
Yeah, your 3 minutes are up. I mean, if you need to wrap it up, you can, but we got what you're going to read in front of us, so we can read it.
Let me go to the next page and at least highlight what needs to be done. This catastrophe is now entering its 4th year. To prevent further incidents, it is imperative that full-time independent oversight role be established immediately at the landfill, and biogas detectors installed promptly thereafter. However, I must stress that this is merely a starting point. A complete overhaul within the existing framework is needed to protect our county now and in the future. The following measures are essential to protect our county and the citizens. Create a full-time independent oversight position to monitor the waste intake. That means checking those trucks going in there, because we got trucks coming all the way from western part of North Carolina and Charleston, South Carolina, and we do not know what's on those trucks. Deploy a sufficient number of biogas detectors around the landfill to verify and mitigate the toxic gas releases, thereby limiting deniability. Every time we report these problems, Waste Connection denies it. They come out there, they sniff around, I don't smell it. And it's been going on for 4 years. Reevaluate, renegotiate, and revise the franchise agreement with the assistance of a competent contract lawyer to ensure that the welfare of our county and citizens take precedence over corporate profits. Ensure retroactive and effective consequences are imposed by Anson County Sheriff's Department when landfill violations occur, which they do regularly. The DEQ has failed to prevent them from over the past 4 years. Control landfill expansion by reducing daily intake from the current 6,000 tons per day to 1,500 tons per day, as outlined in the original franchise agreement. Redefine the definition of a surrounding area, as stated in the franchise agreement, by identifying specific counties and type of waste that is allowed into our county. In the franchise agreement, it says surrounding area. Charleston is not a surrounding area, and neither is western North Carolina. Enhance transparency by strategically positioning cameras that are publicly accessible within the facility premises for proactive supervision. And I appreciate the extended time. Thank you so much.
Quick question before you go, sir. This information you have here,
Yes.
Is it a group, or is it, you have some kind of, where can we find this information?
We have a Facebook page, Anson County Landfill. I'll get you a link to that page.
I tell you what, this number is right for you, 87048. This here number is correct. All right, I'll give you a call.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. We have a wealth of information. We have. I'm sorry.
No, you have a good evening. You're fine. You have a good evening. I'll reach out to you.
Thank you for that, Mr. McGinnis. All right, moving on down the agenda, we get to our appointments. So we, under 8A, we have the ACTS, Anson County Transportation System Advisory Board. So I need a motion to reappoint Miss Yvonne Burr, Teresa Torres, Dixie Allen, Wanda Talbert, and Robert Washington to the Anson County Transportation System Advisory Board.
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Gatewood, second by Commissioner Little Reed. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, and then item 8B, Mr. Addison had sent out a email explaining that we had a planning board member to resign within, I guess, the past probably 60 days now. And so I did not hear anyone or didn't receive any emails, so I had spoke with a subject who is from the Polkton area, District 4. So I would like to present his name for consideration to fill that spot on the planning board. Mr. Todd Williams, like I said, resident of District 4, and I do believe the planning board must be a registered voter of Anson County, correct?
Resident, we didn't stipulate voter.
Okay, so but they just have to be a resident of Anson County. So I feel Mr. Williams meets that criteria. So I don't know if the board wants to consider that tonight or at a later date.
I would think it should. I'm just wanting you to go to the planning board first. Is it totally up to us?
Mr. Addison, if you'll answer.
It's completely at the pleasure of the Board of Commissioners.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Well, I make that motion that we appoint Mr. Williams to the planning board.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Mims, second by Commissioner Gatewood to appoint Todd Williams to the planning board. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, moving on down to manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few items tonight. The first one is the property donation. It's property, those two slivers of property, I guess you might say, that were presented at the last meeting by from me. The person involved was Mr. William Lennon, and he and his sister owned the property. She lives somewhere down in Florida, and he lives over in the western part of the state. I've asked our planning director, Mr. Addison, to look at it, as also our attorney, Mr. Forbes, and our tax administrator. And their recommendation and mine would be not to accept a donation, but to allow staff and Mr. Forbes and I, either one, can contact Mr. Lennon and let him know that it's not really a usable piece of property, because part of it's in a trust. So it would just be a burden on the county to maintain it and hold it. And so I would say just recommend to him to pass it on to one of his neighbors. I'm not sure if he's done that because he lives in, I believe it's Morganton. And so it's my recommendation is if we take it, then we got to maintain it. And so I would let him give it to an adjacent property owner, one of his neighbors.
Okay, Mr. Forbes?
I recommend, if there is a motion to that effect, that it just be to simply deny the donation.
Yeah. Okay. So at this time, I will entertain a motion, unless the board, I mean, we can discuss it, but I'll entertain a motion that we deny the donation at this time.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Gatewood, second by Commissioner Mims. Any discussion on that? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, is Mr. Forbes. I think it's been asked by a few board members to give a report on the J.R. Faison School that was discussed at a previous meeting, and I'm sure he's prepared to do that.
I have spoken with Attorney Mike Flake, who is the school board attorney, and as you know, that the school board still owns the property that is the subject property of over at J.R. Faison. We have asked, or I have asked him to talk with the board of the school board to ask them to offer it to the county, and it will be their decision whether to offer it to the county, and then at that time it will be within your purview of how to dispose of the property. At this point, it's still in the name of the school board, and they are technically still using it for school purposes. They are going to offer it to, if they so choose, they will offer it to the county as per the statutes, and then you can decide, the county can decide whether they want it and what they'll do with it if they do take it.
Okay. So at this time, you do not need a motion from us because technically they are not offering it to us at this time.
Thank you for making that distinction.
Okay. So
they haven't had a discussion on it, the school board.
I can say this, they offered it to us at one time. They have not offered it to us again because another board had rejected taking the property at that time several years ago, and they still maintain the ownership of it.
Yeah.
So is it possible that if they the offer still stand? If we, I mean, I'm just saying, if this is something we was willing to entertain, could we reach out to the school board if we were willing to do so and say,
You could ask them to
we,
offer
that, well, it's been offered, but it's been rejected, is that what it was?
Right.
Okay, that's what I meant.
And they maintained it, but they're still using it for school property, for school purposes. If they want to dispose of it, the statute, they would probably have to offer it to us again.
Okay, that's my question. So in order for us to make a decision on it, they have to make another offer to us. So the offer that
They would have to offer it to us again.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it is, to my understanding, that is their intention, is to offer it to us again, which is why we're having the conversation.
That's my understanding at this point.
Mr. Chairman, we've been discussing this topic for better part of 2 years or more. Is there some way we can expedite the process?
Yes.
That's what I was going to get
I
at.
sent an email as late as today. I made a phone call and sent another email to the attorney Mike Flake, and also he is going to talk with them. He's going to decide what they want to do.
Yes, but as soon as I'm sorry.
You keep saying they're using it. What are they doing with it?
Nothing.
I don't know, ma'am.
Because I don't see anything being done to it.
Correct. I don't know. Well,
It's a wooded area.
Yeah.
it is, and it's ball fields and stuff like that. I don't know that they're actively using it. Kind of like gym. Nobody's in there right now, but they're still using it for school purposes.
So
I don't think they're doing anything. I think your assessment is correct, madam. That they are not actively using it, but it's still serving a school purpose if they wanted to use it.
So what I'd like to do is, I'd like to make a motion. All right, because at the end of the day, what we're going to do with it is what we have to decide, and it's of course contingent upon whether or not they make us another offer. If they're going to make us another offer, then it's going to be back in our laps. So contingent upon them making us offer, I'd like to make a motion that we accept it and gift it to those that
You
Can't do
can't
that.
give that property.
or what sell it, whatever we're doing.
You have to put it up for public.
Put it up for
Yes, sir.
public auction.
Yes, sir.
What are we going to do with? I'd like to go ahead and make a decision that we accept it if contingent upon if it's offered, we accept it, put it up for public auction.
May I suggest
Okay,
that
yeah.
you could make something, if you're wanting to do something, so that if it is offered, that you would accept it.
Yeah, that's my motion. Yes,
sir.
because
Okay.
my motion is that if we get an offer from Anson County School Board, we accept it, put it up for auction.
But I thought we also, just before you got on the board, Commissioner Elby, the attorney was supposed to check to see what was it going to cost to make sure it didn't cost us any money for doing this.
I was on the board last meeting.
You were?
It would be minimal
Okay.
to do that. It'd be the cost of changing it into our name, from the school board, which would be closing costs. And then, I also spoke with, Mr. Larry Newton, who handles the auctions of the property. If y'all so choose to go that route, or there might be a sealed bid process, the cost on that would not be significant.
I was on the board December 17th, so do we know what that amount was? I said I was on the board December the 17th.
I don't know if you
So do we know what that amount is?
We've not gotten that amount. That's something that was put out there before, as Commissioner Mims said.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I was on the board December, I know the decision became before I was on the board, but December 17th, discussion was to have an amount.
Yeah.
At the last meeting we was at, we said we would see what the amount was.
And I
Asked for it and haven't gotten it.
That is the point that I'm making and saying I was on the board December the 17th when we asked what that amount would be, and we still don't know.
Yes, I don't have a definitive dollar amount.
Yeah.
I was told the only cost that the county would incur would be the advertising cost if we advertise it for sale,
Right.
which is minute compared to the sale of a property.
So if it's a minimal amount,
Yes, it's a very minimum amount.
my motion stands. I like to make my motion that contingent upon the school board offering us this property, we accept it, put it up for public auction.
Okay, so we have a
What do you
motion.
see?
We have a motion by Commissioner Ellaby to accept the land from the school board if offered, and in return put it up for public auction. Do we have a second?
I second it.
I have a second by Commissioner Little Reed. So any further discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 2. So, Mr. Forbes, you follow up with Attorney Flake for the school board to see if that offer is going to be, I guess, extended to us.
Certainly will.
All right, thank you.
Will you be able to let us know something at the next meeting?
Yes,
Or will
ma'am.
it take another?
If I find out before then, I'll be glad to send out an email.
Thank you.
I'll send him another one tomorrow, another message tomorrow. I'm sorry. Does anyone know when the next school board meeting is? He's not gonna be able to do anything until then.
When's the next school board?
The first Monday of each month.
Yeah. So it was, what was that, yesterday?
I think the school board meets the last Monday of the month. Yeah, so, yeah, so they'll have a meeting in January, end of this month.
I'll inquire again and I'll report to y'all.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Chairman, I had another item that's on there, and then I want to add one afterwards. It's a short one for your information.
Okay.
But the next on the agenda is I'm introducing Randy Collins with the Anson Economic Development Commission. He is your County Economic Development Director via the Anson Economic Development Commission.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I'm Randy Collins. I've met, I think, most of you. If I haven't, as Lynn said, I'm the Executive Director of the Anson Economic Development Corporation. We refer to it oftentimes as the EDC. I'm just going to take a few minutes to give you an update. My board, the EDC board, recommended that I update the commissioners on a regular basis, at least right now quarterly, to let you know what's going on in economic development in the county. We are a private, nonprofit, 501c3. Responsible for recruiting new industry and keeping the industry we have. I serve under a 22-member board of directors chaired by Chuck Horn, who's the president of Hornwood. Mr. Horn could not be here tonight with me. Mr. Calder serves on our board, as well as the county manager, Mr. Sussman, and Commissioner Woodburn as well. Some years ago, the EDC director was a part of the county and a staff member here. This was before I came. I've been here a little under 2 years. The position then was brought back to the EDC board, and they hired a new director. The county still does provide, as you may know, some funding via the sales tax revenue, as well as some other expenses incurred by the EDC. Other funding that the EDC gets is paid through grants and other sources of revenue that we have. We are still a nonprofit. So how the process works, some people have had some confusion about this. I want to make sure I'm clear about it. A new prospect generally will come, a prospect to locate an industry, will come through the state government normally. The state, after meeting with these people through the Department of Commerce, they're vetted through a group called North Carolina Southeast. It's 20 counties, including Anson. And they vet them as well, make sure their questions are answered, see what it is they want to build, where they want to build it. Then they're sent to me, and I get to respond. And we have a library of about, right now, 25 either pieces of land or properties that we market. And so what we look for, and I sent one out today for Anson County, we look for a match. How much square footage they need? Do they need a building? What are the utility requirements, etc. The good news is the activity has been strong. People say, boy, you know, what's going to happen? There's industry coming. There are a lot of people looking at Anson County now, which is, and you probably know that already. So obviously, I wish I was here tonight to announce to you a big industry that's coming, or an industry, but we're working on several. Specifically in the last 3 months, you know, in December we had 7 industries looking at Anson. November was 10, and October was 7. Now these are companies who've expressed interest in this county and in the region of bringing a business. Some overseas, some nationally, some private corporations. We generally are looking for we're not talking about entrepreneurs here and 1 or 2 employees. We're talking about generally 10 acres or larger parcels and employee amounts of 20 and up. I had a recent prospect of some 400 employees. If they built out the plant, you know, you're talking about a lot of jobs. Manufacturers, warehousing, people that assemble products. The parts are shipped in and they're assembled in a plant here. What I've found, because I'm not from this area, we relocated here to Wadesboro 2 years ago. One thing you have here that a lot of communities don't have is rail. There seems to be a lot of interest in rail. Growing up in Washington, D.C., you don't hear a lot of train whistles. You hear them in Anson County every day. So that's a good thing. We do get some retail prospects, but not a great deal. There are other companies that deal with retail. I'm talking about big box or any other type of retail. Some of you understand that many of the prospects we deal with are done confidentially. We can't always tell you what company it is, where they're from, and all that because of agreements we have with them. 2 projects to update, then I'll certainly take any questions. We're doing a shell building project east of the PD Electric headquarters on 74. It's a 7-acre site. We're going to build a 45,000 square foot shell building or a prospective industry building. We have no tenant for that building. We have funding through the state to build that building, about $4 million. So obviously, if I take a prospect out, it's better that I show them an actual building rather than a piece of land. The shell building, if you go out there now, it has been cleared, and we hope to start construction very soon. We're also working on a sewer line project on 74. That sewer line would come out from a Hornwood pump station on Haley's Ferry Road out to 74 and then east down 74 about 3 miles and provide sewer line service to the Atlantic Gateway industrial area right across the street or across the road from PD Electric. That's about an 80-acre site that we want to develop, currently owned by PD Electric, but we're going to develop that as future industrial growth. And we talked about zoning earlier. That is zoned light industrial in that area. So 2 major projects going through. The sewer line project is about another $4 million funded through a grant, as well as the shell building. So just some final thoughts, and the reason for me being here is to let you know that the effort in economic development goes on every day. I'm a full-time employee. I am an office of 1 person. I have 2 contract employees. It's year-round. It's every day. We are here to make sure that economic development is done and done in the right way. I pledge to you to come back to you every quarter and report progress. Specific reports on industries are given to the board members here that sit on the EDC board, and we welcome your input. And I could go into a whole lot more detail on economic development, but you have a lot of stuff on your agenda tonight, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can you explain, Mr. Collins, the funding mechanism for AEDC? How you're funded, so to speak, from the county standpoint?
We receive, and Led could check me on this, sales tax revenue that comes in. It was split in 3 pots of money. 1 for public schools, one for the community college, and in thirds. 1/3 for schools, 1/3 for community college, 1/3 for economic development. And so we get that as well. The county provides additional funding for staff costs, because that was previously, the economic development director was previously a county position. And I think our membership to North Carolina Southeast is covered under the county as well.
That's correct.
So the rest of our funding comes from other sources.
Got you.
What's the total amount of funding?
I'm sorry?
What's your total amount of funding that you
Total
receive?
amount from the county?
Yes.
You know, I'd give you an estimate at, I think it's over $300,000, somewhere around there. The tax revenue was about $300,000. So collectively, that tax revenue was $900,000 split between those three organizations. And I think that was done through state code, state statute, if I'm right on that, Scott.
I was just fixing to clarify, that is the general statute that the state spells out, has to be divided for economic development, schools, or higher education.
Right. Right. And you know, I talk with a lot of citizens and try to speak to other groups, and one lady said she didn't really understand the need for economic development, and I'll put this to you if it helps, and any citizen that may hear this or be curious. If a community does not do economic development and raise tax revenue from industry, the tax burden falls to the landowner and the homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
So communities, and I've lived in those communities, who desire no development pay a price. However, economic development understands that through zoning and planning, you're not going to pave over everything, and we're not going to charlatize Anson County. I have actually found some industries interested in Anson because we're a rural county. They want to come here because of what you have to offer that is not offered in counties, certainly to our west.
But we would have no knowledge of who or what they want to bring while dealing with you all.
To what degree, Mr. Elby, we can tell you we will, especially if you're talking about a prospect that moves forward to.
Yeah, I mean a potential industry coming
Right.
this way.
Well,
you say it's confidential, so.
Well, certainly I can tell you it's part of our mission. We're not interested in any industry. We don't go after an industry that is environmentally concerning, and that's a broad brush. But you know, ultimately, you know, we're interested in talking to just about any company within reason. At some point in time, it'll end up before a public body, and you will be informed of what's going to happen, certainly.
Quick question.
We want to create those jobs too, is really what we want to do.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
How long has this agreement been with the AEDC, with the county?
How long was the separation?
Yeah, this 1/3 that you all, I know the general statute lines it out that 1/3 goes to schools, 1/3 to
Right.
economic development, and the other third to, what was it, higher education. So,
Right.
yeah, which was community college. So, how long have we used AEDC?
If I understand your question,
How long have we been given the roughly over 300,000? It's about 400,000, I believe.
I do want to make sure that the board understands something.
Right.
To my understanding, it doesn't have to be divided 3 ways. That's just what has been allotted through the.
But I mean, my question is, how long have we done it? That's what I'm more interested in.
How long has it been
I'm
in
guessing-
place?
How long has it been in place that we've utilized the
Good question.
services of the AEDC?
We had an AEDC. We had an AEDC director here that was working for the county. Then they divided off into another one, and John Merritt was the first one that came, and that was by presentation by Mr. Chuck Horn and I think Don Scarborough, and I want to say 6 to 7 years ago. And that's from memory. I can find out the exact.
So that's roughly about how long
sir.
we've been paying the AEDC from the county.
from then.
Now, with,
Going on 8.
from the,
So Mr. Woodburn was a part of the board when
Going
it,
on 8 years.
8 years, okay, so within 8 years, have we, brought in any industry, or what has been the benefit of the ADC to us for that amount of money?
There were, there's been jobs created. There hadn't been any like 150, 200 employee business brought in, but there have been businesses brought in over the years. And I want to think the last count was, well, let me check on that and make sure, see if I can find my notes.
Well, me thinking, I'm just saying, we're looking at about $500,000 if you round up, probably $400,000. I'm just wondering.
Are you getting a return on your investment?
Certainly.
Is that the question?
That's the point of spending money.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. I'd say, if you ask the same question in Spartanburg, South Carolina, they'd have a different answer, because they hooked a big fish, and they benefited from that.
Right.
We are competing with 100 other counties in North Carolina for industry. It's kind of rough and tumble out there now, and the competition's been fierce. I wish I could stand here and say that your investment over the years has generated X number of jobs. I don't have that data for you.
Right.
But that's a good question. We will get it for you.
Yeah, I was curious, because if we're spending, I don't know, roughly $400,000, 10 years, that's what?
Right.
$4 million. So we're right under $4 million investment, and I'm just curious if we've had any economic development. And if we haven't had any economic development, and we've invested $4 million, and we've got.
Another thing I'll add too, and I completely understand the question. We've also lost industry.
Certainly.
Your community, one of the biggest manufacturers in the town of Wadesboro pulled out.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've got a 100-year-old plant sitting on 74 that I'm talking with the owner about finding a new tenant.
Right.
A 100-year-old manufacturing facility can be a challenge to promote from my desk.
I agree.
You understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I agree.
Because many companies will come in and build new cheaper than they would take over an old plant. So it's a challenge. I'll tell you, I'm up for the challenge. I'm here but I serve at the pleasure of the EDC board.
Right.
And we have public officials on that board. It's a good question.
Well,
I appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah, because Spartanburg, Anson County citizens voted for me, so I don't know what they got going on in Spartanburg. I just know $400,000
well, one
per year.
interesting thing about my colleague in Spartanburg will tell you there was opposition to building the BMW plant in that city.
Certainly.
And that traffic is worse now, and a lot of other things.
Mm-hmm.
But there's 10,000 employees making $100,000 a year or better at that plant. I think the future looks great for Anson. I wouldn't be here if that was the case. After 30 years in economic development and chambers of commerce, I'm optimistic about the future for Anson County.
Yes, sir. Me too.
Are you concerned?
Wait just a minute, Mr. Gins. Go ahead.
Are you concerned about Anson County being a Tier 1 county? Is that status, does that concern you?
The older I've gotten, Commissioner, I feel I've gotten more honest in my life.
That's
and
good.
I would not be
Me
honest
too.
with you to say that it's not a concern. However, if an industry locates in this county, it will be because of the real estate deal that they can get, the building deal they can make, that same deal cannot be made in a neighboring county. So it's a business deal.
Mm-hmm.
But does it concern me? You bet. Because a company moving here may make that deal, but they're going to do a lot of digging to find out what really is Anson County all about. What are the things that bring people here? What are the struggles? But our struggles that we have here are really no different than a lot of other communities around the region.
Yeah.
But my purpose in letting you know that the effort continues and your input is valuable, and I invite you the input is always welcome. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other, I think we got some other questions.
Hold on one second.
I was just gonna mention, in addition to the jobs that's been created, like I said, I don't have that number with me tonight, but the other thing that's happened is also assistance has been given to existing businesses and industries in Anson County. And that's another thing that a lot of times you don't hear a whole lot about.
Yeah, part of our mission is retention of current industry. For instance, this week I'm meeting with Triangle Brick. I just want to sit down and talk with them and say, how are things going? We love you, we want you to stay. Don't think about moving. Are there issues about doing what you do in our community that we can help with? And maybe that could be something little. Maybe it's something related to the county. I will tell you that, not to blow smoke at you, but with Lynn's help and Mr. Chairman, your help and Mr. Woodburn's help and others, I think the county has been very receptive when we make requests. Somebody needs help, and Lynn tells me who I can call to make that happen. Some counties are not business friendly. I think Anson County is very business friendly.
Well, we certainly need more of them.
We're working on it every day.
What type of business or
We better
industry
be
are you
friendly.
targeting to come into Anson County?
I'm sorry?
What type of businesses or industries are you targeting to come to Anson County?
The prospects that I'm seeing are generally industrial or light industrial, manufacturing. They come because there are other companies that do the same thing. But we work across the board. But generally right now, 70% of my prospects are what I would call industrial manufacturing positions, companies.
If you had to say, what is the chance of landing one of them? Just what's the percentage of just from your perspective, the chance of somebody saying,
if I didn't think that there was a chance, I wouldn't be here.
No, I mean the prospects that you say you have. Like if you had to give me a percentage of them saying they're going to come.
I've dealt with probably 25 prospects in the last year. Several moved from what I call round 2 or round 3, but we landed none. So, if you own a manufacturing company, another community may give you a better deal. We just work hard every day to find that right deal, that right match, and hopefully convince them that this is the right place to invest. It's not an exact science. We do the best we can with the resources we have to attract the right industry.
One last question, and I'm done. Now, currently, the AEDC is a private, non-profit organization, correct?
Correct.
And so, we are extending the $400,000 or whatever that amount is to you all in hopes of gaining some economic development.
Well, and a choice that the county made before I came.
Yeah.
Not to take economic development. If you go to Charlotte, economic development is part of the city government.
Well, that's what I'm leaning towards.
They made that decision, and I wasn't privy to why that decision was made, but it gives us some autonomy to operate. However, we have public officials on our board, and we have some public funding. I'll give you an example. The sewer line that we want to build, and we're working hard to get that done, will be a gift to the county. Won't cost the county a dime. In fact, the county will make money from that sewer line.
And how much is that sewer line? You said
$4 million.
That's about how much we spend.
And we got that from the state, but
right.
It will cost the county money to operate it.
Certainly.
It's not free, but and the shell building project is we will own that, and any money made from that will be reinvested in another project, in another shell building. In Rockingham, they have 4 shell buildings and another one under construction. So right in our neighboring county, I've got a competitor working to bring in the same industry. So I will continue to keep in touch with all of you. I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, your time and the commission's time as well.
You got a question?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Leary, go ahead.
2 things. With the first one, you said marketable. You said you had 250 parcels.
No.
Is it
No.
25.
25.
I'm glad I.
Right.
That is a lot.
Right.
Okay. Is that from private landowners? Like you say, 25 parcels that you're trying to market.
Right.
Do you own 25 parcels?
No, they're privately
That's
owned,
what I'm
generally
saying.
privately owned or corporately owned, family owned.
Okay. So it's a mixture of private and corporate owned.
Correct.
Okay.
But both buildings, existing buildings and land, and we are interested in any additional land or parcels, but something larger than 10 acres or more, where I can't really sell as much as I'd like to, a space on Main Street. It's really not what we do. We look at the larger pieces of property and land.
And then when you have these industries turn down the opportunity to come to Anson County, what do you see? I would love for you to give me a top 3. I know that's putting you on the spot, but just give me a gist of what do these industries see in Anson County that prohibits them from coming in? What do the other counties sell to them in their mind that they don't see coming to Anson County? There's got to be points there.
Is there a list of stuff that we're not checking off for them? It's tough for me to put it, but think of everything. You know, sometimes the demographics are working against us. At a county of 20,000+, we're not large enough for that industry. It could be a situation with demographics as far as median income for a family. A lot of citizens ask me why we don't have a Target, why we don't have an Olive Garden, why do we don't have the median income in this county is not large enough to support a corporate entity. I'll pick on Olive Garden. They require a county where the median income exceeds $50,000, and we're almost there, but not quite. But there could be other reasons why they don't choose us over somebody.
Yeah, and I understand like Target and Olive Garden, things
Right.
like that. That's the ones I'm talking about, like manufacturing plants. Something that's gonna give us a distributor site as far as a mass distribution, something that is good, medium income jobs, you know.
Right.
Somebody out of high school can go in, make a good living.
Right.
That's the ones that I'm interested in.
We're not talking industries about minimum wage jobs, by the way.
Right.
We're not interested in that right now. I mean, we want livable wages, skilled labor, and labor is a big issue in this county. You know, in as far so if somebody came in and built a plant today and needed 200 people, that's going to be a challenge. But it can be done. You know, there's something called reverse commute. People can commute the other direction out of Mecklenburg County and come here to work instead of the other way around. Right now, half of our working population leaves this county every day to work.
Right. And that's what I would like to see change with some kind of industry to keep these.
Right.
Because as soon as you start, I mean, we're in the position right now with the county, with a lot of citizens, is, especially my age and younger, is they go and get jobs elsewhere, go to Union County, go to Allback, go to these other industries outside of the county. They start getting older, they get in mid-20s.
Right.
Man, I don't want to drive 30 minutes to an hour anymore. And they start looking and they go elsewhere. Regardless, yes, houses may be more expensive, but money is time to these folks. And they're leaving our county. So if we can, when you said marketable, what do you see in Anson County when you talk to, and I'm not talking about Olive Garden, I'm talking about industries like 100+, employees, industries, when you say you make these parcels marketable, what is your selling point for what makes Anson County marketable right now to these industries?
The cost of operating an industry here is less. I hate to say it's a business deal, but generally it's a business deal.
That's the biggest marketable.
If I buy
position
50
right now.
acres in Union County compared to 50 acres in Anson County, generally speaking, I'm going to get a better deal in Anson County.
Yes.
Now, does Union have things that Anson doesn't? Yes, but I am hearing that the wave is coming east from the Union County, not from the north, not from the south. It's rolling this way, and at the end of the day, it's more of a business deal about finding labor, but also the right land deal, the right building deal, and a desire to come to a more rural county. I've had prospects ask me, why should I come to Anson? What has Anson got that no one else has? I said, Anson has everything you need. We just have less of it.
As any industry.
Your choices are less in Anson if, you know, you're interested in 1 million square feet of shopping mall. We don't have it. And we have to be honest with these people. We don't blow smoke at a prospect. We give them honest answers.
I mean, I hope.
One thing that I can tell you that does hurt as a business owner myself is the property tax rate. When you cross the county line, your property tax rate drops significantly in Union
Yes.
County. So the cost of running a business is less in Union County because you're not paying as much tax up there. Now, the downside of that is we have to have a higher inflated property tax rate because we have to provide the services that we don't have the industry to provide.
You know, one thing I mentioned, I've taken too much more of your time here, is that some of these industries have very specific utility requirements, and I know Lynn and some other people that helped me on this, but I can tell you, Duke Energy and PD Electric, the water and sewer people at the county, when a company says, I need this amount of power, the power companies generally have said, not a problem. Now, when you get into technology about broadband and some other things, sewer lines, and you know, it gets complicated, but we have all the pieces of the puzzle to attract industry, and we're working hard to bring some good industry here. Definitely.
I have a question. You said you're getting ready to start building the shell building down there in PD?
Yes.
How long would it be before you complete it?
That project has been delayed, but we're
Yes.
we're close now to starting construction. I'm going to estimate by the middle part of 2025 it'll be up, so that I'll have something to show to a prospect. But we're going to begin the marketing of it now, even before it's built.
So right now you don't have anybody. You gonna wait?
No, and it's built as a prospective building. I mean, just to attract. Like I said, Rockingham is on their 5th shell building, and by the way, Rockingham sold all of them. I mean, you bring a client in if it's what they're looking for, but we're talking about 4 walls and a roof. It's not very fancy, but it's good for an industrial company.
So whenever
Familiar with the economic developer over in Richmond County, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Do you talk to her?
Yeah, I've met with her. Yeah.
So once you get the building
Richmond County's
completed,
booming.
yes it is. Once you get the
Union
building
County as well.
completed, and Stanley County is also.
Yes, ma'am.
So once you get the building completed and you don't have anybody to go in, so who's responsible for the taxes and all that right there?
Well, ultimately, we would own it.
So
We purchased the land, PD owned the land, and we're purchasing the land, and we'll own the building.
So you'll
And
be
then
paying
we
taxes.
intend to sell it.
So there won't be no taxes. They're nonprofit.
We don't intend to lease the building, we intend to shell building to sell it.
How much is a shell building? You know, I'm just curious to build one.
Our building's $4 million. And you know, prices on everything is crazy now. You know, a sheet of metal is different than what it used to be, but it's interesting work, and it keeps us hopping every day. But I appreciate your time and attention, and I may be in touch with each one of you if you have other ideas. I'm all ears.
Okay. Mr. McGinnis, you have a question? We typically don't do this, but.
You say you're trying to prevent, I won't just call it corporate polluters. That's the way I know it. What filters do you have in place that is preventing corporate polluters from coming to this county? Because the reason I'm asking, just give me a heads up, the reason I'm asking is that's all I've seen in this county for the last 5 years.
And you refer to them as, and I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing, corporate
polluters, people like McGill.
I express to the board, and I'll express to you and publicly tell you that we're not interested in companies that are not environmentally sensitive. However, when the right companies do come in, and they can vet themselves to make sure that they are safe. You know, but we're not environmental experts either. They'd have to be vetted in the community.
Consulting environmental experts. Do you have any environmental experts that you consult as far as if somebody does want to come in?
If an opportunity came that our way and we looked at that, we would look carefully at it to make sure that that it's done in the correct way.
And the difference, Mr. Collins,
Yes.
you're relatively new, but then the difference in the past, we've not had countywide zoning that prohibited anything.
Right.
So it was an open door policy. We just bring whatever you want.
Right.
Now that we have countywide zoning, that is what spells out what is allowed and what is not allowed.
Correct.
And so that is kind of our
And,
line
you
of
know,
defense.
I think it was Nick did a great discussion about zoning and rezoning. People do look at parcels of land even before they contact me. And that's why you have a rezoning process. And then you have a public hearing. People can stand up and say, no, I'd rather not that company be here. But in the 2 years that I've worked here, I have not had any prospects come before me that I would call corporate polluters. But some could differ with me on that. I'm trying to create jobs too. That's a dilemma, but not at too much of a price.
Okay. Any
Thank
other
you, Mr. Chairman.
questions for Mr. Collins?
Thank you
All right.
all.
I want to appreciate your time for coming out tonight and addressing
Yes,
the
sir.
concerns.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Manager, I think you had one more item.
One quick one, I think. I had been asked to take a look at printers for the commissioner since the computers are coming and for distribution. And the printers, our IT director, Dwayne McCoy's looked, and they would be $335 per commissioner. And I say per commissioner because I know there's some that may already have printers and access to printers. So that's for your information and your decision-making process at some point in time.
Okay. Yes, so the board, as some of you recall, and for the new members, it was voted on, I think, probably 6 or 8 months ago now, that we would move to an electronic agenda packet. So we are going to be receiving a computer that is scheduled for our next commissioner meeting. There'll be a training course, so to speak, after the meeting. So the idea or the mention was brought up that some may need a printer if they still want to print off a paper copy agenda. So we have a quote for the printer if you would like one. If you will just let Madam Clerk know, she can arrange in getting that printer for you. I didn't feel we needed to provide everyone with a printer if they did not need one, only if you requested one. So there's the price, and to see Madam Clerk if you would like to obtain one.
Is this like a computer by choice, or is it a computer that you all decided on already?
It was a computer that was decided on by the board, and I'm not even familiar with the brand. It's a Surface tablet or something.
That's Troy.
So,
Mouthful guy.
I am too myself. So, so it's going to be a learning curve for me. But we will go over that at our next meeting. All right. Anything else for the manager?
That's all I have, unless I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the chairman's report. I just have a couple items I want to go over. First, I just want to make the citizens aware that on our property taxes, they were billed out in August. They were due September 1st. As of today's date, January 7th, they are now delinquent, and so interest will start accruing today. So if you have not got your taxes paid, we encourage you to do that. As you recall over some past meetings, we have implemented some strategies. We will be trying to collect those taxes that are past due, different mechanisms that we have not done in the past. So so I'm just trying to give you a warning that you may be receiving a phone call or a letter, so we want you to get your taxes paid. Also, that there are some personal business listings that are due by the end of the month as well, for the business owners that are listening. The Anson County strategic planning process is still ongoing. Please visit the Anson County government website and click on the link to share your input for that strategic planning. And then I also want to make you aware that the county offices will be closed on January 20th in observance of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. It's January the 20th. Other than that, that is all that I have as a chairman's report. So are there any commissioner concerns or comments at this time?
I have a concern.
Okay.
In Lysville, I've been getting a lot of calls from the clerk, the sanitation supervisor, and just citizens in general about people dropping off dogs. And every time they try to call up to the animal shelter to try to get some assistance, they are not receiving any. So if somebody could just reach out to her and tell her they need to go to it's on Fire Tower Road. I know it's on Fire Tower Road.
One of the problems, Commissioner, we have now is that the two folks that she had working for her that would collect dogs have left the county. We are advertising for those positions. I've even asked our HR folks to take a look and see if they can even get part-time folks. I've discussed it with Commissioner Mims and also with our chairman, and so we're looking at what we can do to come up with a better fix.
But it's gonna be a while.
I understand. I hate it.
Yeah. That's why we're trying to find a
right.
short-term, immediate fix, what we can do quickly.
But I think, Mr. Sossman, if you maybe give you the task to check with the surrounding county, see what someone would help out, even with the other agents, whether it's Richmond County, Stanley, or either Union, on whichever end the call comes out, just to assist her.
Right. And we've actually, I guess, borrowed a animal control officer from Montgomery County, because and I'm trying to work on an agreement now with them to see, sort of kind of like we did with Stanley County and the jail, to see if we could get someone that would come over and work. We do the same thing from an environmental health perspective in terms of getting those things done, because it's tough to get certain positions. I've been advertising for 6 months or better, 8 months for an engineer, and so far I've had absolutely no applications that had an engineering degree.
We've had applications, just not the criteria.
Truckload of applications, and but nobody that's anywhere close to an engineer.
Yes. Okay. Any other commissioner concerns?
No, I don't have any concerns. I have announcements that were sent to me for the invitation to any of the commissioners. The Anson County MLK Junior Planning Committee presents Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. birthday celebration. It will be a celebration of the dream now becoming a reality. Start Friday, January the 17th. It is the MLK Jazzy Night, 7 p.m. At the Hollis Center in Morven. Saturday morning at 8 a.m. There will be a MLK Unity Memorial March from Anson DSS parking lot to SPCC Lockhart Taylor Banquet Room, and a prayer breakfast and program at the Lockhart Taylor Center once they arrive there. And on Monday, the 20th, soup on the square, time 12 noon to 1 p.m. and it is free to the public. Uptown Waysboro in the square. So they asked me to share that.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other commissioner? Yes, Mr. Woodburn.
I've got, first of all, that the Anson County Opioid Fund Settlement Committee, I think is the name of it, is meeting on the 9th at 5:30 p.m. out at the community room at the hospital, and they're inviting elected officials and community leaders to come participate in the program, and there will be a meal served. Also, Commissioner Leary mentioned at our last meeting our rules of procedure need to be updated. And I've got a question. I don't know. I think it might be easier, and I couldn't find them, but if they were electronic on the county's website, or if we had an electronic version, it might be easier for us to do that. But I think that's something that is a great point that he's made, and we need to get to work on that and get it matching what we're currently doing, because there's a lot of outdated information on it.
Okay.
And the last thing is, I think I mentioned last time about Chief Magistrate Jared Weaver Thomas. He retired on December 31st, and this month there's going to be a celebration of his career. I think it'll be at Lockhart Taylor Center, and I believe it's on the 25th. Is that correct?
Saturday, January the 25th, beginning at 6 p.m.
6 o'clock. Yeah.
All commissioners, the attorneys, my friend, the town manager, everyone's invited.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right.
And then last thing, this started today, and it seemed like, and I don't know if anybody else has gotten them, I've got a couple emails, and Paylocity is whenever you got to click on that to do something. Does anybody else got them? Is that on the level? I hadn't done anything with them, but I'm just wondering if that's a hack or something
I
else.
get it, but I don't have a login for it, so it doesn't do me no good. So.
Paylocity?
Yeah. I mean, that's where it come from. Like this one right here says County of Anson. This one, last one that said it's your work anniversary.
Yeah.
But then it says see who's celebrating. When you click on it, then you got to get into it and see all that. But I'm just wondering if anybody's getting them. If that's on the level, is Paylocity sending those?
That's right.
Or is that a hack?
You've actually this is your 22nd anniversary, correct?
Let me see. Yeah, that's what it says.
And Paylocity it is, though.
So it's on the level. There's no hack then.
No.
Right.
It sends you. I received one on my birthday that said it was my birthday. So it's tied in with our pay company.
And if you want to use it, check with Katie in the next few days or whatever, and she can help you get logged in.
Okay. Yeah, I never had a login, so I didn't.
My main concern was just whether or not it was a hack of some kind. That's something I was wondering about. Okay, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Well, he hit on the one part of mine. The other one, Mr. Forbes, if you can just give an update for the Code of Ethics presentation.
About the ethics?
Yeah, just give us a quick update on what you got planned for us.
I've compiled several things. I'd like to finish this up. I have some things that I've gotten from other counties, and I've also gotten some things from the statute and the School of Government, and compiled those together. I should have a working draft by the next meeting. I'd like to distribute it to the board individually by email and have everyone look at it, if that's all right with you. May have it done by the end of the week, I'm not sure. But it'll have different suggestions in there. It'll be a draft, it'll have some language in there. Y'all keep what you want, what you don't want, you don't adopt.
You can just make it clear, or highlight whatever's mandated by the state and everything else that is, I guess what's mandated by the state, and then all the suggested materials separate, or just so we can understand which one's mandated and which one's suggested.
I'll even denote what's required by the statutes and what's enforceable, and then what's mere suggestions, because ethics can go both ways on that. I'd be glad to do it.
Yeah, I think one way to do that is, anything that's required per statute is just put the statute there and say what you need to do.
Certainly.
North Carolina General Statutes, I read over it. I pulled it up and read over it. You can go check 153. I think it is somewhere in there too. Because the state kind of governs how we supposed to do what we do here, and so it's kind of laid out there. Yeah, but I think the code of conduct, doesn't it fall within? That's what I was under the assumption that the conduct is the ethics.
Sir?
The conduct is the ethics, so we have that in place.
Okay.
I think, don't we? Don't we have that in place, code of conduct?
We have a code of conduct that encompasses all employees, commissioners, elected officials, and all that. My worry was that what I read from the code of conduct, and then what I read from the general statute, everything wasn't in the code of conduct that I read in the general statute.
Okay, so if you'll have that for us by our next meeting, so we can, thank you. All right, any other, Commissioner?
Chairman, I have one.
Yes, sir.
Just one quick item. You know, given the recent discussions and concerns that we voiced regarding our tax collections and the fund balance in the most recent audit, I'd like to request an interim financial report, something that will give us a view of where our revenues are and where our expenses are from, say, July 1 of 2024 through January of 2025. I think that's warranted. Also, the bank balances that we have, just to make sure that we're on top and know where we're going.
Okay, so a tax report, basically a 6-month tax report.
No, an interim financial report.
Okay, so
yes, revenues, expenses, and the bank balances.
Okay. All right, Mr. Well, we will task our tax administrator. I was going to say Mr. Manager, but we'll task Mr. Newton to. And Holly.
Let me do it. Let me do it.
That's what he should.
Matter of fact, I've already talked to Holly about getting those things together. And what our tax administrator does is he turns over all of his revenue receipts to finance.
Okay.
And so they should be able to put that together, plus our expenditures. And as Commissioner Gatewood just said, you know, we're 50% through the year as of December 31st. So I want to see where we are up and down versus each department. And so Holly and I talk about it, our finance director, routinely. And so I think he sent me an ESPN, something like a message, and so that's why it triggered me to go ahead and ask that question, but he's right on target. And then, but I didn't think about the bank balances. If that's what you want, we can do that too.
I'd like to see the bank balances as well.
All right.
And I think the citizens would like to see that information, Mrs. Osman.
Okay.
All right, any other Commissioner concerns? All right. At this time, do we have a need for a closed session item?
Yes.
Okay, so.
I'll make a motion that we go into closed session.
Second.
Okay.
On what basis, if I may ask for confirmation?
It's closed session.
It's closed session.
But it's based on AEDC.
I was going to say, it's my understanding it would be contract negotiations with.
All right, very good. That's what I was requesting. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So this time we have a motion by Commissioner Little Reed to go into closed session. Second, I think you seconded it. So by Mr. Ellerby. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? You're good.
Are you ready? Ain't nobody out there.
No. It ain't on yet.
Seems like Commissioner Reed moved.
You see why I said we have a need for knowing when we're back in open session now.
We might be right. It might be.
It's a delay.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed there was a delay earlier.
Oh, it's that bad there now?
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Make a motion, we come out of closed session.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ellerby, second by Commissioner Gatewood to come out of closed session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion that we adjourn.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Gatewood, second by Commissioner Ellerby to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.